Hi there, my name is Meredith White. I teach Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And clearly, I've been listening to audio samples today. I might have just finished grading some tests they definitely took 3-ish weeks ago. I don't know. Anyway, it's not important. What's important is I'm getting it together here and getting my life together. And so, in checking Twitter and different notifications, a couple of people have asked about what I've referred to as giving like an everyday IPA, not the India Pale Ale, although an everyday IPA to drink is fine too. Live your best life. But what we're referring to is integrated performance assessment, which some people, many people, lots of awesome people give as unit assessments. I don't have that particular freedom because where I am, we all give common assessments and they have all 4 parts on each one. So reading, writing, speaking, listening, and we agree upon them and then we give them basically the same time-ish. So we're really uniform in that way. And we kind of compare data and have some discussion. So I don't give IPAs as like a unit assessment. Can totally give them as a quiz, or like a smaller summative, or formatively, whatever. But what I'm referring to is basically designing my learning episodes every day, more or less. Some days are more well planned out than others. Obviously, as we know, we're human. But basically working so that each day's lesson plan follows the same way an integrated performance assessment would, meaning interpretive first, then interpersonal, and then presentational. And depending on how well versed you are with the modes, the 3 modes, interpretive is always reading and listening, something that they can interpret. It's coming in, it's input of some kind. Then the interpersonal is speaking, just because interpersonal writing isn't really a thing we can do in the classroom. So for me, it's always interpersonal speaking. And then presentational isn't giving a presentation. You can put your pitchforks and torches down because that's where people always go, I don't think novices should be giving presentations. They're not. I'm a big fan of not having novices give presentations just because I did it for a long time and I think it was mostly for me. And to be honest, it was early in my teaching career and I liked that it used up a lot of time. But if I really reflect on the presentations they were giving, those could have been done small group setting, one-on-one. There were better ways. I just didn't know them. So I'm not opposed to not giving novices presentations. Presentational just means it's writing or speaking that no one's responding to. So the interpersonal is a conversation between partners, but presentational could be a recording for you or a voicemail or just them saying, my family is big. I have a mom and 6 siblings and my dad or whatever. And it's nothing that you're responding to, as opposed to interpersonal, which is a conversation. So ideally, an integrated performance assessment goes interpretive, interpersonal, and then presentational. And none of the tasks can be done without the previous one, meaning to do the interpersonal, they needed to have done the interpretive, so listened to or read whatever it was. And then to do the presentational, to write or speak about the topic at hand, they're going to use some information from that interpersonal so that students can't just skip from activity 1 to activity 3. For me, for a long time, that was what was happening and I didn't even realize it, but I was just filling time. I was just filling 50 minutes because I was like survival mode all the time, which I think most beginning teachers are. But over the years, staying in one spot and professional development and getting more secure in what I'm doing, I've been able to really then look at the objectives, the targets, how we're getting there, what we're actually doing, and going from, how will you formatively assess to, well, every activity is a formative assessment of sorts. So what will that card game inform me for? Or what will that worksheet, depending on how they did, or if they couldn't do it, or if they did it and breezed through it in 4 minutes, what information is that giving me too? Everything really that you don't grade is a formative assessment. And so I've gotten finally past, it only took 12 years, just like filling 50 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever, and really making sure things lead to the next thing. So that's what I mean when I say they can't do any of the activities without the other 2. So kids can't just sleep for 60 minutes, wake up and go, oh, which part's she grading? And then like do the presentational writing. If the presentational writing includes information from their conversation with their partner, they might be out of luck. Therefore, the consequences are natural. And it also allows my verbiage to be such that I bring it back to the learning. Oh, you fell asleep, or oh, you just got chatting and you didn't do the second part? Well, you better hurry up because you're not going to be able to do the presentational writing. Like, come on, let's go. And they kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. And it's not a gotcha, and it's not like, oh, that's a 0. And it's not taking up something that I wouldn't have taken up before because I'm being selective. Whatever the presentational part is, whatever the output is what I will take. But again, people they get their pitchforks and they get their torches. Presentational doesn't mean that novices are always outputting, especially prematurely, because we know that that's not how they learn. But presentational writing can be a list, based on your conversation with your partner about foods and stuff. Now your presentational is make a shopping list that they might like for a week. They're trying to eat healthier. In Spanish too, in January, when we revisit food and health, and we talk about daily routines, I love incorporating New Year's resolutions. And that presentational writing can be just a list of habits, wake up at 5, like based on what that person said they want to change for the second semester, what goals they have for themselves in their lives. And that brings back all these descriptions and time, and it's an authentic setting for all of those different structures. But it can be a simple list. It's not forcing novices to write pages and pages. Although I do tell mine quantity first because quality will follow, but I have to be able to, you have to write enough or speak enough that I can see what your line of thinking is, especially as a sympathetic locutor. So that's what I mean when I say like an everyday IPA. Obviously, it can't happen every day because sometimes they're still doing the interpersonal and I look up and the bell's about to ring. I'm like, oh, we'll save the writing for tomorrow. Sweet, lesson planned. All ready, all set. And that's fine. We're human people and it's not really sustainable to do, all the things all the days. But it's also probably some of what people are already doing. It's probably what you're already doing if you have some kind of like a guided worksheet, like first do this, then take that information, do this part, and then take that information and do this part. If you ever look at anything on Teachers Pay Teachers from like Christy Placido or Martina Bex, they make beautiful, or Mis Clases Locas, they make beautiful materials that are like guided through, and some of them will be labeled as like good substitute assignments, but it's that same structure. And it still follows the like I do, we do, you do. And I think what takes a little step further with the everyday IPA is the I do is pretty self-explanatory. That's probably the input. And then the we do can actually have a couple of parts. Like we do as a class with me, but then also we meaning you and your partner. To me, that's also the interpersonal. So it's sort of phasing out of the interpretive into the interpersonal. And then lastly, the you do can still be you and a partner. It's just I'm off to the side, out of the scene. And then the second aspect of you do is now you alone. So it's almost like that we and that you got cut in half. So it's like I do, we do, you do, you do. For 90 minutes, that's a really nice class structure for me because it ends up being, and I'm going to minimize this for a second, it ends up being, as you can see on my screen, about 20-20-20. And you should change activities about every 10 minutes or so for block scheduling, especially with that brain time of like first 10, last 10. So we do our daily warm-up, which takes about 10-15 minutes. And then that can kind of phase into here. That can be part of the input, part of the interpretive, part of the anticipatory set might be some input for the interpretive. So then we can just phase into it. Then about 10 minutes for them to read something or listen to something on their own. Then that phases into the interpersonal. So that could be, 20 minutes max is what I'm saying there. Again, pitchforks and torches. Like nobody said it has to be, a third, because novices should be primarily in the interpretive mode, I think, for a lot of times, so that you could lengthen that one and then keep the interpersonal and then shorten the presentational. And so then that 20 or 15 or 10, whatever, however many minutes, then they're with a partner and it's like they could be asking and answering, recording each other's responses. Then for that presentational, they take those responses based on what the interpretive was and then write or speak something that kind of synthesizes it all together. I have a couple of examples here in image form. This was one like in a food health chapter, Spanish 1. Flip these. These are backwards. It was interpretive first, and then it was interpersonal. But first we watched a video on like eating. It's like a children's TV show in Mexico with these two clowns, Cheche, and I can't remember what the woman's name is. But anyway, they go all through like the plate, mi plato del bien comer, and so on and so forth. And we go through some questions together. Then the interpersonal is, I spin, we pick a food group, and you state something, or you ask your partner, okay, which do you eat more of? Do you eat a lot of fruits? Do you eat a lot of grains? Do you eat a vegetable? You could do it just Q&A style. Or you could do like make a statement, they agree, disagree. Mine were kind of open because the vocabulary was new. So I just said you have to say something about, to your partner about that particular food group. And then they could like comment or whatever, but it was only about 15 seconds. I just wanted to get them like stating things. So if it landed on fruit, my favorite fruit are apples, or is apples, whatever. Apples are my favorite fruit. There we go. And then lastly, the presentational was, okay, take everything they said about the food groups and like how much you need and how much you should have and every day and calories based on your weight and water and all that stuff. And then based on like your own opinions that you just stated with your partner and what your partner said. And then, talk about the food, talk about what a balanced diet looks like within the food groups. What about you? What do you eat? Which is what you just said. And our goal was just like 100 words, novice, high, sentence level structure. And I gave him some examples of what level up language would look like. So like because, but, then, therefore, especially when it comes to sort of cause and effect, which eating and habits are. It's like, I like to eat, I am athletic. Therefore, I play a lot of sports. Therefore, it's important that I eat healthier. It's important that I have energy, and so on. And another example is along the same lines, but in a more cultural aspect of it. The interpretive was reading about the Latin flavor on the American diet, like its influence and how it's been doing that for a while. And that is it just a trend? Is it just a fad? Spoiler, the answer is no. Why might that be, and so on, getting them thinking about that, the rise of places like, burrito places and Chipotle and all those kind of things. Then the interpersonal was they had the class roster and they asked each other each of these questions. They just had to like find 10 people. And then lastly, it was, okay, now talk about like what kind of flavors you eat in your life. Does comida latina or el sabor latino affect what you eat? What else about what you eat? So they can kind of refer back to that previous, these were 2 different days, back to that previous writing of, what do you eat? What do you eat and why? Most importantly, why? You can see our objectives here just start from listing, of course, and just follow the thinking levels to ultimately, by the end, the writing and the speaking, they need to be able to just give lots of information about why they eat what they eat. Which includes likes, dislikes, meal times, meals, etc., family eating habits, health, or lack thereof, etc. An example that is happening recently is with Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So again, this could just be modeled after what you may already do in terms of like a really solid guided worksheet, where the first part is interpretive. So they are going to scan these QR codes, use their earbuds, and listen to the audio samples from these videos. This is just a screenshot. And so these videos are all about Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all the sales and the crowds and where to get good deals. We're in a clothing unit, so I just want them picking out really, really basic stuff. But the videos are kind of specific, and so it's really fun. It's like sales on shoes, and then it lists like different kinds of shoes and things that we've talked about. So it's really fun input and an authentic resource, of course. I'm using Senora Chase's rubric down here, which is just identify some things. This isn't for a grade, it's just to show them kind of where that grade would fall. I'm in a place where we have to have grades. So I know that there are places and lots of amazing people who do standards-based grading and all this kind of thing. We're not there, so I have to call a thing a grade. So I'm not calling this a grade, but just letting students know it's the end of Spanish 1. If you're still identifying at the novice low level and that's all you can do, it's probably like a C. But if you can get the general idea, novice mid, novice high is you can pull out some specific thoughts, etc. So they're going to have like a smattering. There's 4 different QR codes for them to scan and go to the video. There's 4 different videos. They're going to be kind of like writing all over the place, and that's okay. So there's the interpretive. Now they're going to turn to somebody else. Okay, here's back to the clothing and shopping. Do you like to go shopping? Do you like Black Friday? Do you like Cyber Monday? And reasons why, and just recording a quick little bit from them, just a quick kind of Q&A. Because then I really want to take them to a reading which kind of goes back to a little bit of the interpretive about Cyber Monday and Black Friday. And so it like sums up Black Friday and Cyber Monday and kind of the history of the two. Authentic resource, not, for native speakers, by native speakers. But again, that same kind of rubric, you could either do that, you could do that same rubric, but except here for listening, you just make it like read and then read, and it's the same function, just getting them to identify what they read and like take the pressure off, take the stress out, because they like expect to understand every word, and then they're all having like a panic attack. I'm like, no, why would I expect that? So getting them to where, okay, all you need to be able to do is just summarize the text, and I'm only giving you like 40 words here. So that's all you get. And then you're going to do it in like 24 words. Then you're going to do it in like 12 words. So getting them to where it's like, okay, here we go. And I also linked them down here with this QR code to some more infographics in case they want to see some more things, and like coupons from Black Friday this year and things like that. So it's very like, this one's authentic, resource rich, but keeping the task simple because the input is so dense. And if it was like, okay, and at 3 minutes, 23 seconds, she says da-da-da-da-da, that could be a cool like signpost to go, okay, did you notice when she said this, or a way to guide them through it. But the denser the input, the simpler the task, and vice versa. If the input's really simple, then the task can be a little bit denser. When you have a video that you can just mute and really they're just like watching what's happening and maybe there's no talking or the talking's really simple, or again, you just mute it. You just take away that part of like the sensory, that part of the input. Then they can like write about it or they can process it in a different way. But when it's all like coming at them and then whatever they're doing is really complicated, that's like a lot for them to do. And I think sometimes we have the curse of knowledge and we're just like, oh, fill in the lyrics as we go. And all of a sudden the words fly by and then we're like, I find myself mildly annoyed that they look confused. Like, hello, I told you it was going to be fast, but I forget what it's like to not know the language. We know our language. And so we're used to doing more complicated tasks. So that's something I've really had to rethink in the last few years is like, maybe that's kind of unreasonable. So keeping rigor, keeping it relevant. So keeping it rigorous, keeping it relevant, but also keeping it level appropriate. That's hard. I think it changes every year. We teach the students in front of us, not the students we want or used to have. So, I think there's an ebb and flow, but this is just an example of how I would have it go from interpretive to the interpersonal, then to, and then a little bit of presentational, but this is still kind of interpretive. Ultimately, their presentational will be a writing tomorrow on, okay, let's tell me about Black Friday and Cyber Monday. That's it. Like, tell me about shopping. What do you like? What do you like in terms of Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Did you go? Did you not go? What'd your partner say? I mean, this is just like an information dump. And then from there, I can code it at the bottom, novice mid, novice high, or intermediate low. Nobody's going to be novice low. That's just like vomiting nouns on the page and nobody's there. And they will get to use this guided sheet that they have. So they will get to use any information here that they had, but they'll put everything else away. So it's a scaffolded presentational writing, but it's like, all right, tell me about shopping. Tell me about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which is tomorrow. So it's on the day. Tell me about the things. I'm going to cap you at 200 words, but other than that, go crazy. What else do you like? And why? That's the thing. So the only thing they'll have to help them is that sheet. So again, it goes like in, together, and the focus is really on the input for this one, not so much on the interpersonal, but it gives them a little extra ammunition and it kind of calms the brain down for a sec, and then they pick it back up with that reading because they're two dense readings, one dense reading and several dense listenings. So they have a little choice there too. If they run out of room or just really want to focus on one, okay, so scan one video code and only listen to one and only fill out the rubric for one. I don't mind. Or do all four or do two. It kind of differentiates itself that way. And it's a fun way to expose them to multiple authentic resources without feeling like we need to fit it all in at the same time or in the same class or like everyone needs to do the same thing. Because some might be like, pencils down, done, super frustrated. This is above me and everyone else is doing fine. And I think when you give it to them and they can kind of privately focus on it, that's a different experience sometimes. So I like to change it up. Group audio, individual audio, group reading, whatever. You do what works. And so that will go, like I said, interpretive and then interpersonal, interpretive again, minor presentational summary, but then really presentational writing, putting it all together. So again, the ebb and flow. Nothing says that it's prescriptive, must be this way, and novices must be especially. The only reason I say that is because that's the argument sometimes is, but novices shouldn't be. Well, yeah, again, knowing what we know from the research and the theory and our own experience. We just do what's best for our students and what's appropriate and what's sustainable. So the structure may not be sustainable for everyday lesson planning, but again, it might be what you're already doing. I know I was a little bit, and then I found some guided practice things that I was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna not call it guided practice and just call it what it is. It's interpretive reading followed by, okay, let's discuss in the novice levels, which is, sentence frames and yes, no, agree, disagree. And then let's write about it, or write about what your partner said, or compare your shopping habits versus his or her shopping habits, or eating habits, or school habits. You can do anything with that. And then again, they had to talk to that second person or a couple other people in order to do the final one. So that's the only part that's assessed is the presentational, because it includes all of the previous ones. So anyway, I hope that was a somewhat clear explanation and shed some light on kind of what I consider, like I said, the everyday IPA. Nora Jones changed my life when I attended a session of hers 4 years ago, I think, and it's just been kind of marinating ever since. I've finally gotten, as you can see on my screen, to where I code my file names as to what mode they speak to, and then like a little bit more information. And that's been really a game changer for me in a way that I don't know that I realized it would be. But finally I was able to just say like, oh, day three warm up. It was like, yeah, but what is it? What's it doing? What's the point? And so now I'll look and I'll have like a full week planned out or a unit. And I'm like, oh man, this is a lot of reading. We need more audio. We need more listening, because it's just like interpretive reading. And now I've gotten to where I'm finally realizing that and balancing things out a little bit better. And it keeps me in check, because if not, we'll just be reading for days and suddenly they haven't like listened to anyone but me all week. And that's something that is hard when you have a super big department like we do. And so you want to reduce some of that variability. You don't want students going on to so-and-so and it's like, oh no, we never listened to, audio tracks. It was always just her. And that doesn't set kids up for success. So it helps myself police myself in some of those things that are easy to forget, or just you get caught up in all the things. And heck, some days we are just filling 50 minutes or whatever, but kind of putting this structure in place has allowed me to transcend some of that stuff that used to overwhelm me. And I used to just go, oh, never mind. Let me just use this worksheet that I already have. As opposed to, let me look at what I've already got. How could I change this up and either make it a little more creative, sexy it up a little bit, or just leave it and then change what the result is. So maybe that's the build up to like a writing or a speaking. So anyways, hope this helped. Hope it's not too long, and have a great Sunday and have a great week.